Ama Boteng lived in the busy city of Accra. The streets were always full of cars, the air buzzing with voices, and the smell of roasted corn floating through the markets. In that crowd of people, Ama always stood out. Her bright smile, perfect makeup, and the way she carried herself made everyone turn their heads. She walked with confidence, her high heels clicking softly against the pavement as if they had their own rhythm. People called her Queen Ama. Some said it jokingly, others said it with admiration. Every photo she posted online seemed to shine brighter than the last. She took pictures near tall hotels, fancy restaurants, and sometimes even next to cars that looked too expensive to be hers. Her followers loved her. They liked, commented, and shared her posts. To them, she lived a dream life, beautiful clothes, glowing skin, and endless fun. But behind those pictures was a quiet secret that Ama never shared. Every morning, when the city was still waking up, Ama would sit by her window in her small apartment. The room wasn't as grand as people imagined. The walls were painted cream, and the furniture was simple: a bed, a small table, and a sewing machine that sat near the corner. The machine had belonged to her late mother, who taught her how to stitch and fix old clothes. It was on that same machine that Ama spent many nights working, turning old fabric into new designs. Ama's story wasn't one of wealth. It was one of determination. She had lost her parents when she was a teenager and had to survive on her own. At first, she worked in a clothing shop, learning how to choose the right fabric and use colors that caught people's attention. She was a fast learner and always dreamed big. When she finally saved enough money, she bought her mother's favorite kind of sewing machine, old but strong, and started her small business. Still, life in Accra wasn't easy. Rent was high, electricity bills came too fast, and customers were sometimes slow to pay. Ama learned how to smile through it all. She would dress beautifully not to show off but to attract clients. She understood that in her world, appearance mattered. If people saw her as confident and stylish, they would trust her designs more. So, she played the role of the slay queen everyone thought she was, not for attention, but for survival. Every day after taking her morning pictures, she went to her tiny workshop behind a local salon. The room was hot and smelled of fabric, perfume, and hard work. She would hum songs by local musicians while cutting and sewing, her fingers moving quickly like they had a rhythm of their own. Sometimes, little children passing by would peep through the window and laugh at her colorful materials. Ama would wave and smile, handing them scraps of fabric to play with. By afternoon, she delivered clothes to her clients, mostly office ladies and university students who wanted to look sharp but couldn't afford designer prices. They called her sister Ama the stylist. They never knew that she was the same Queen Ama from Instagram. She kept that part of her life separate. On social media, she showed glamour. In reality, she showed grace. One afternoon, as Ama walked through the market to buy fabric, two women selling tomatoes began whispering. One of them said, "Look at her. She must have a rich boyfriend. You can tell by her shoes." The other nodded, adding, "Yes, these slay queens never work. They just take pictures and live off men." Ama heard them but didn't stop walking. She had learned long ago that not every rumor deserved an answer. She simply smiled and greeted them kindly, "Good afternoon, aunties." The women smiled back, a bit embarrassed, and she continued her way. Sometimes, Ama laughed at how people imagined her life. If only they knew how many nights she stayed up, sewing until her fingers hurt, or how often she had to skip meals just to buy new fabric for her clients. But Ama never complained. She believed that hard work had its own kind of beauty. In the evenings, when the sun dipped low and the streets glowed orange, she would go to the beach. She loved the sound of the waves. It made her feel calm. There, she would take her phone and record short videos, simple ones about self-love, hard work, and staying positive. She never revealed too much, but she always ended her videos with the same words, "Be kind. You never know what someone is fighting behind their smile." Her followers thought she was just being poetic. None of them guessed those words came from her own life. Ama didn't have many friends, but she trusted one person, Kojo, a young man who ran a small barber shop near her workshop. Kojo was funny, hard-working, and respectful. He often teased her, saying, "Queen Ama, one day I will be your photographer. These your pictures need a man's touch." She would laugh and tell him, "Kojo, my pictures don't need a man's touch, they just need good lighting." They were good friends, always joking but quietly respecting each other's hustle. Though she appeared confident, Amma sometimes felt lonely. She wished people would see her for who she really was, not just a pretty face on a screen. But she also understood that life was about balance. She needed the Queen Amma image to grow her sewing business, and she needed her business to keep her dreams alive. One evening, as Amma sat sewing a golden dress for a client's wedding, the power suddenly went off. The room went dark except for the small lantern she kept on the table. She sighed but kept working. The soft glow of the lantern made the gold fabric shimmer. She smiled at it and whispered to herself, "One day, everyone will know what I really do." Outside, thunder rumbled in the distance. The rain soon started, tapping gently on her roof. Amma hummed softly, her eyes tired but full of hope. She wasn't a slay queen living off anyone. She was a dreamer, a worker, a woman who turned struggle into style. And though the world still thought they knew her story, Amma was content. She didn't need to explain herself. She knew that the truth, like her golden dress, would shine when the right light came. That night, she looked at her reflection in the window, the faint outline of a strong young woman, tired but proud, and smiled. "Let them talk," she whispered. "I know who I am." Outside, the city lights flickered like stars on earth, and somewhere in the busy streets of Accra, the story of Queen Amma continued, not as a mystery, but as a quiet reminder that behind every shining picture, there is always a story untold. The sun rose slowly over Accra, painting the sky in shades of gold and orange. The streets began to fill with life as traders hurried to the Makola market, balancing baskets on their heads and shouting out the day's prices. The smell of fresh pepper, fried plantain, and soap filled the air. Everyone seemed to know everyone. And everyone, it seemed, knew Amma Boteng. She walked through the market with her usual confidence, wearing a simple white dress that moved softly in the morning breeze. Her hair was neatly tied, and she carried her small handbag close to her side. Even in a crowd, Amma had a way of standing out. Her bright smile and calm walk made people stop and look. Some admired her beauty, while others couldn't hide their curiosity. As she passed a stall filled with ripe tomatoes, two women whispered behind her. One of them, Auntie Afua, leaned close to her friend and said, "That slay queen again. Look at her, always walking like she owns the world." The other woman, Auntie Esi, nodded, her hands busy arranging tomatoes. She just spends money. Every week, she comes here wearing something new. Who buys all these things for her?" Amma heard them but pretended not to. She had learned long ago that silence was sometimes stronger than words. She smiled politely at them and said, "Good morning, aunties." They both looked surprised and quickly replied, "Good morning, Amma." Their tone changed, soft and polite. After she walked away, they continued whispering, but now a little less loudly. Kojo, the young barber whose small shop stood near the market entrance, saw the whole thing from his chair. He shook his head and smiled. Kojo had known Amma for almost 2 years. His shop was just a few steps away from her sewing corner, so they often saw each other. He admired how she carried herself, always graceful, always polite, even when people judged her without reason. When Amma reached Kojo's shop, he greeted her with his usual teasing grin. "Ei, Queen Amma, you've caused trouble again. Auntie Afua and Auntie Esi are talking about you like you're a movie star." Amma laughed softly. "Let them talk, Kojo. People must always find something to say. It keeps them busy." Kojo chuckled, trimming a customer's hair as he spoke. "But seriously, Amma, even I'm curious. How do you manage this lifestyle? You don't have a rich uncle hidden somewhere, do you?" Amma smiled and shook her head. "No rich uncle, no secret. Just hard work and good planning." Kojo laughed again. "Hard work, yes, I know. But you should teach me how to look this good while working this hard." Amma playfully rolled her eyes. "Kojo, if you stop gossiping and start dressing well, maybe you'll learn my secret." Their laughter mixed with the sounds of the market, the clatter of coins, the chatter of buyers and sellers, and the rhythm of life itself. Amma moved from one stall to another, buying fabric, threads, and zippers for her sewing work. Many sellers greeted her warmly. Some called her Madam Designer, others called her Sister Amma. But behind those greetings, she could still hear soft whispers. "See her shoes," someone said. "Those are not cheap." Another voice added, "Maybe she's dating a politician." Rumors spread quickly in the market. By afternoon, everyone seemed to have their own story about Amma. Some said she was a model for a fashion company. Others claimed she worked in a rich man's house. A few even believed she was secretly married to a foreigner. None of it was true, but the stories kept growing like fire in dry grass. Amma never corrected them. She knew that if she explained, they would only find a new rumor to replace the old one. Instead, she chose kindness. Whenever someone gossiped, she responded with a smile. Whenever someone doubted her, she worked harder. One afternoon, as she packed her fabric into a small bag, a young girl named Adwoa ran up to her. Adwoa helped her mother sell plantain in the market and often admired Amma's neat clothes and cheerful spirit. "Sister Amma," the girl said shyly, "my mother says you don't really work, but I told her you do. You always look tired in the evenings when you pass by." Amma smiled warmly and bent down to Adwoa's height. "You are a very smart girl, Adwoa. Your mother loves you, but sometimes people don't see everything. You must always learn to see for yourself before you believe what others say." The little girl nodded and grinned, feeling proud of Amma's words. From that day, she always waved excitedly whenever Amma passed by. Later that evening, after the market began to quiet down, Amma sat under a mango tree near the road. She watched the traders pack up their goods and the last customers hurry home. The orange glow of the setting sun made the market look almost peaceful. Kojo came out of his shop, wiping his hands with a towel. He sat beside her, both of them watching the busy street. "You know," Kojo said, "people talk because they don't understand you. They think life is easy for someone who looks confident." Amma nodded slowly. "I know. But it doesn't bother me anymore. Everyone fights a battle they don't show. If people want to talk, let them talk. One day, they'll see the truth." Kojo smiled. "You sound like a wise old woman." Amma laughed softly. "Maybe I am. Life teaches you more than school ever can." The two sat quietly for a while, listening to the sounds of the city, a bus honking in the distance, laughter from a nearby shop, and the rustle of fabric in Amma's bag. She thought about her long day, the gossip, the whispers, the stares, and felt a strange peace. She had learned something important. People's words could never define her. Only her actions could. And her actions were simple: to work, to help others, and to live with dignity. When she finally stood to leave, Kojo called out, "Hey, Queen Amma, don't forget me when you become famous." Amma turned, smiling. "I'll never forget you, Kojo. You're my #1 barber in Accra." Kojo laughed, waving as she walked away. The sky was turning purple now, and the market lights flickered one by one. Amma's figure faded into the evening crowd, her white dress glowing softly under the street lamps. As she disappeared into the distance, the market slowly grew quiet. The same traders who had whispered about her earlier now packed their goods, still wondering who Amma truly was. None of them knew the truth, that the so-called Slay Queen they talked about spent her nights sewing clothes and her mornings helping children in need. Amma's secret was safe for now. The rumors would continue, but so would her journey, calm, steady, and full of quiet strength. The market might never stop talking, but Amma had stopped listening. She had work to do, dreams to chase, and a purpose too big to be explained in gossip. The morning air in Accra was cool and gentle, the kind that carried the smell of wet earth and promise. Kojo woke up earlier than usual, still thinking about Amma. The market gossip from the day before had stuck in his mind. Everyone spoke about her, but nobody really knew what she did. Kojo had always been curious, though he never said it aloud. That morning, curiosity got the better of him. He decided to follow Amma and find out the truth for himself. He stood outside his barber shop pretending to sweep the front area, but his eyes stayed fixed on the small road leading to Amma's apartment. A few minutes later, she appeared, dressed differently from usual. Gone were her bright clothes and high heels. Instead, she wore a simple blue dress and carried a black bag on her shoulder. She looked calm, even peaceful. Kojo frowned slightly. It wasn't the kind of outfit he expected from someone the market women called a slay queen. Amma didn't notice him as she walked down the street. She moved quickly but quietly, greeting people along the way. Kojo followed from a distance, careful not to be seen. The morning sun had just started to rise, and the streets were slowly coming alive. Children in school uniforms ran past, and women opened their kiosks for business. Amma turned at a junction and walked toward the edge of town, where the noise of the market faded into the sounds of birds and laughter. Kojo slowed down as he reached a small gate with a sign that read, "Hope Children's Home." Through the gate, he could see Amma. She was already inside, her bag placed on a bench as she swept the dusty compound. The broom moved quickly in her hands, and her face glistened with sweat. She didn't look like someone pretending. She looked like someone who belonged there. Kojo stood still, watching in surprise. For a long moment, he didn't move. He saw her sweep the floor, help a woman carry buckets of water, and later serve breakfast to a group of children sitting on wooden benches. The children's laughter filled the air, pure and loud. Some of them ran to Amma and hugged her, calling her Auntie Amma. She bent down and hugged them back with a smile that Kojo had never seen before, a real, unfiltered smile. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. This was the same woman everyone said was lazy, proud, and spoiled? The same slay queen who people claimed lived off rich men? It didn't make sense. He stepped back, leaning against a tree, and kept watching quietly. After breakfast, Amma gathered the children in a circle under a mango tree. She brought out small bottles and tins from her bag and placed them on a low table. "Today," she said softly, "I'll show you how to make something special, body butter from shea and coconut oil. It will help your skin and maybe one day you can make it to sell." The children clapped excitedly. Kojo could hear her laughter mixing with theirs. She opened a small tin of shea butter, scooped some into a bowl, and began to mix it with coconut oil. The smell drifted through the air, warm, natural, and sweet. She showed the children how to stir gently, explaining how patience made everything better, even in life. The children listened closely, trying to copy her movements. Some of them got messy, and Amma just laughed, wiping their little hands clean. Kojo smiled to himself. He had never seen this side of her, simple, kind, full of warmth. It made him realize how wrong people were. Amma wasn't living a life of luxury. She was living a life of purpose. After the lesson, Amma handed out snacks to the children and sat with the caretaker of the home, a kind woman named Auntie Grace. "We really appreciate your help," Auntie Grace said, holding Amma's hand. "These children look forward to your visits every week. You don't just bring food or soap, you bring hope." Amma smiled, shaking her head humbly. "Auntie Grace, I don't have much, but I have enough to share. My mother always said, even a little kindness can grow like a tree if planted with love. That's why I come here. These children remind me of what matters." Kojo felt a lump in his throat. He stepped back quietly, not wanting to interrupt. His heart felt heavy, not with sadness, but with admiration. He had followed her expecting to find something dramatic, maybe even scandalous, but what he found instead was beauty in its simplest form. After an hour, Amma packed her things and said goodbye to the children. "Auntie Amma, when will you come again?" one of the little boys asked. She smiled and replied, "Next Saturday, my dear. Be good until then." The children waved as she left the gate, her bag once again hanging over her shoulder. Kojo followed her from a distance again, still deep in thought. She stopped by a small roadside stall to buy some oranges and greeted the seller cheerfully. "How much are they today?" she asked. The seller, an old woman, smiled and replied, "For you, 2 for 1 Sadie." Amma laughed. "You always spoil me, Mama Ajay." Kojo could see how naturally Amma connected with people. She was polite to everyone, from children to strangers. There was nothing fake about her. He finally decided to reveal himself. "Good morning, Queen Amma," he said, stepping forward with a grin. Amma turned, surprised but not upset. "Kojo, what are you doing here so early?" He shrugged, pretending to be casual. "Oh, I was just taking a walk." Amma raised an eyebrow, amused. "A walk? At 7 in the morning, all the way out here?" Kojo laughed awkwardly. "Fine, you caught me. I was curious. I wanted to know what you really do. I thought maybe the gossip was true." Amma crossed her arms but smiled. "And now that you've seen the truth?" Kojo's voice softened. Now I feel foolish. You're nothing like what people say. You're amazing, Amma. You help children. You work hard. Why don't you tell people what you do? Amma looked away for a moment, her expression thoughtful. Kojo, if I tell them, it becomes noise. I don't need people to praise me. I do what I do because it feels right. The world doesn't have to know everything. Kojo nodded slowly, understanding her more than ever. You're a strong woman, Amma. The world needs more like you. She laughed gently. No, Kojo. The world just needs more people who care. That's all. They walked back toward the city together, side by side. The sun was brighter now, and the market sounds began to rise again. Vendors shouting prices, buses honking, people laughing. But something had changed in Kojo's heart. The woman he thought he knew was far more than what she appeared to be. That day, when Amma entered the market again, the whispers began as usual. There she is, the Slay Queen, someone murmured. But Kojo only smiled. He knew the truth now, that behind the pretty pictures and fine clothes was a heart full of compassion. And though Amma still didn't say a word to defend herself, she didn't need to. Her actions spoke louder than any rumor ever could. The morning began like any other. The streets of Accra buzzed with life, and Amma Boteng was busy in her small workshop, cutting fabric and humming softly to herself. The air smelled of fresh cotton and soap. Her sewing machine made its familiar clicking sound as she worked on a bright yellow dress for a client's wedding. Outside, the market women were already shouting prices, and Kojo's barbershop radio played a cheerful highlife song. Amma's phone buzzed on the table, but she ignored it. She had work to finish before noon. The phone kept buzzing, vibrating against the wooden surface until finally, she sighed and checked it. Her eyes widened. There were dozens of messages, all saying the same thing. Amma, have you seen the post? Confused, she opened her social media page. The first thing she saw was a picture of herself, not the polished version from her photo shoots, but one someone had taken at the children's home. In the photo, she was wearing her simple blue dress, holding a baby and smiling warmly. The caption read, "Meet Amma Boteng, the woman everyone calls a Slay Queen." What many don't know is that she spends her weekends helping children at Hope Home and runs a small business making natural skincare products. True beauty lives here. It was signed by Mama Efua, one of the caretakers at the orphanage. She had shared the post the night before, not expecting much. But by morning, it had already spread everywhere. People had shared it hundreds of times. The comments were full of shock and praise. Amma blinked in disbelief. 4 months, people had whispered about her. Now, those same people were writing messages like, "Wow, we judged her wrongly," and "A real queen indeed." She didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Just then, Kojo burst into her workshop, holding up his phone. "Amma, you're famous. Have you seen this? Your picture is everywhere." Amma looked at him, still stunned. "Yes, I just saw it. Mama Efua posted it." Kojo laughed, shaking his head. "And to think people used to gossip about you every day. Now they're calling you a hero. Life is funny." Amma smiled shyly, setting her phone down. "I never asked for fame, Kojo. I only wanted to help those children. Now everyone knows." Kojo grinned. "Well, maybe this is a good thing. People finally see who you really are." Amma wasn't sure. The attention felt strange. Her messages kept piling up, some from old classmates, others from people she hadn't spoken to in years. Even a few small companies wanted to work with her. She scrolled through the comments slowly, reading words that warmed her heart but also made her nervous. That afternoon, she went to the market as usual. But something was different. The same traders who used to whisper behind her back now smiled and called out her name. "Amma, we saw you on Facebook," one woman shouted from her stall. "You are a good woman, my dear. May God bless you." Another woman, Auntie Esi, the one who used to gossip the most, came running up to her. "Amma, my daughter, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I used to think wrong things about you. Please forgive me." Amma smiled gently. "Auntie Esi, there's nothing to forgive. I understand." The woman nodded, her eyes full of shame and gratitude. "You have taught us not to judge people too quickly." Word about Amma spread quickly beyond the market. Local blogs picked up the story. Soon, a small radio station invited her for an interview. When she arrived at the studio, the host greeted her warmly. Queen Amma herself, the woman who proves that slay queens can slay with kindness. Everyone laughed, and Amma blushed. She spoke simply during the interview. "I'm not perfect," she said softly. "I just try to do what I can. The children at Hope Home remind me to stay humble. I use my business to support them because that's what makes me happy." Her words touched many listeners. That night, her page gained thousands of new followers. People sent her encouraging messages, some even offering to donate supplies to the orphanage. At first, Amma felt overwhelmed. She wasn't used to attention. But when she visited the children's home the next weekend, she saw how the post had changed things for the better. Several boxes of donated food and clothing had arrived. Mama Efua hugged her tightly. "My dear, you've done something wonderful. Because of you, people now care about these children. The home has never received this much help." Amma smiled, feeling tears sting her eyes. "It's not because of me, Mama Efua. It's because people saw kindness and remembered they can be kind too." The children ran to her as always, their laughter filling the yard. Some of them held up small thank you cards they had drawn. "Auntie Amma, look!" one of them shouted. She bent down and hugged them all. "You are my biggest reward," she whispered. Even Kojo came that day, carrying a bag of fruit. "I told you, Amma," he said proudly. "Now the whole world knows what I already knew. You have a good heart." Amma laughed softly. "You talk too much, Kojo. But thank you." He grinned. "So what will you do now that you're famous?" Amma looked around at the happy faces of the children and the bright morning sun shining through the trees. "I'll keep doing what I've always done," she said. "Fame comes and goes, but love stays." As the weeks passed, the story continued to inspire others. A few young women from the community came to Amma, asking if she could teach them how to make the natural skincare products she sold. She welcomed them gladly, showing them how to mix shea butter and oils just like she taught the children. Soon, her small business grew. She opened a little workshop called True Glow by Amma, where she employed 2 young mothers from the neighborhood. Her products sold quickly, not just because they were good, but because people now trusted her. Even so, Amma stayed humble. She still went to the market in her simple dresses. She still greeted everyone with her warm smile. When people tried to praise her, she would say, "Don't thank me. Just do something kind for someone else." One evening, as the sun set over the city, Amma sat outside her apartment with Kojo. They watched the sky turn pink and gold. Kojo looked at her and said quietly, "You've changed things, Amma. People are learning from you." Amma shook her head gently. "No, Kojo. I didn't change them. I only reminded them that kindness still exists. Sometimes, people just need to see it to believe it." Kojo smiled, nodding. "You're a real queen, Amma. Not because of your looks or your clothes, but because of your heart." Amma laughed softly. Then maybe being a queen isn't about crowns or makeup after all. The city lights flickered on one by one, and the sound of children playing echoed faintly in the distance. Amma leaned back in her chair, feeling peaceful. The truth had finally spread, not through gossip or rumors, but through good deeds. And though she had never asked for attention, she was grateful that people had finally seen the real her, a woman who worked quietly, gave freely, and believed that even the smallest act of kindness could light up the world. The days turned into weeks, and life in Accra slowly returned to its normal rhythm. The noise of the market, the sound of radios, and the scent of roasted maize filled the streets again. Yet, something had changed quietly, not in the city, but in the hearts of the people who had once whispered about Amma Boateng. Amma was no longer just the woman with the bright clothes and perfect photos. People now saw her differently. They greeted her with respect, called her Sister Amma, and asked her for advice. But Amma remained the same. She still woke up early, prayed by her window, and started her day at the sewing machine her late mother had left her. Kojo often passed by her workshop in the mornings, carrying his small radio and a cup of tea. "Queen Amma, you're working too hard again," he would tease. Amma would smile without looking up. Kojo, if you don't work hard, who will? He would laugh and sit by the door, watching her stitch fabric with gentle care. Sometimes she told him stories about her mother, how she had taught her to sew and to never give up, even when times were hard. Amma's small business had grown since her story went viral, but she didn't let it change her. She still lived simply. When people offered her money for promotions or wanted to use her story for fame, she politely refused. "I'm not doing this to be popular," she said. "I just want to help others find their own light." Every Saturday, she continued visiting Hope Children's Home. The children waited eagerly for her arrival, their laughter echoing through the dusty yard when they saw her enter. She brought soap, snacks, and sometimes new clothes she had made herself. The youngest ones always ran to hug her legs. One day, after finishing her sewing for the week, Amma sat with Kojo under the big mango tree outside her workshop. The evening breeze was cool, and the smell of fried fish drifted from a nearby stall. They sat in silence for a while, watching the busy street. Kojo finally turned to her and said, "Amma, do you ever get tired? You work, you help others, you give so much. Don't you ever want to just rest?" Amma smiled softly. "Of course, Kojo. But helping others gives me strength. When I see those children smile, I forget how tired I am." Kojo looked thoughtful. "You know, people still call you a queen, but now, it's for a different reason." Amma chuckled lightly. "A queen? I'm no queen, Kojo. I'm just a woman trying to live right." But Kojo shook his head. "No, Amma. You're wrong. You're a real queen. Not because of what you wear or how you look, but because of what you give." Amma looked at him, her eyes shining in the fading sunlight. "True beauty isn't in the pictures, Kojo. It's in what you give. It's in kindness, patience, and love. That's what lasts." He nodded slowly, her words settling deep in his heart. The days that followed proved her right. More young women came to Amma, asking to learn sewing or how to make natural skincare products. She welcomed them warmly, teaching them with patience. She didn't charge much, she only asked that they promise to teach someone else one day. "Knowledge grows when it's shared," she often said. Her small workshop became more than a business, it became a place of hope. Laughter, music, and the soft hum of the sewing machine filled the air. Women from all walks of life came there, not just to learn but to feel seen and encouraged. One afternoon, a young journalist visited her shop for an interview. She wanted to write a story titled, "The Queen with a Purpose." Amma hesitated at first, not wanting more attention. But the journalist assured her that her story would inspire others to do good. So, she agreed. During the interview, Amma spoke simply. "When people first called me a slay queen, it hurt. But I realized I didn't need to prove anything to anyone. I only needed to keep doing what was right. My mother used to say, 'You don't shine by talking about your light, you shine by lighting others.'" When the article was published, it spread quickly across Ghana. People admired her humility even more. Some said she reminded them of the kind of women their grandmothers used to talk about, strong, selfless, and full of wisdom. Amma continued to visit the orphanage, sometimes joined by volunteers who had been moved by her story. The children now had new uniforms, better meals, and even a playground built by donors who had read about her work. But Amma never took the credit. She always said, "This is God's work, not mine." Despite her success, she still faced moments of loneliness. Some nights, when the city grew quiet, she sat by her window, sewing in silence. The moonlight fell across her hands as she worked. She missed her parents and often wished they could see what she had become. But in her heart, she felt they already knew. Kojo remained her closest friend. He supported her whenever she felt overwhelmed, and she often teased him about finding a wife. "Kojo, one day I'll design your wedding suit myself," she would say with a laugh. He would grin and reply, "Then I'll have to find someone worthy of your design, Amma." Their friendship became something solid, built on respect and understanding. He admired her deeply, not for her beauty, but for her heart. Over time, Amma's quiet strength began to change others too. The same market women who had once judged her started organizing small charity drives for local schools. Young people began to volunteer at Hope Children's Home. Everyone wanted to be part of something good. It was as if Alma's kindness had planted invisible seeds across the city, and they were finally growing. One Sunday evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky orange, Alma sat at the orphanage surrounded by children. They had made a handmade card that read, "Thank you, our queen with a purpose." Alma held the card close to her chest, her eyes filling with tears. "Oh, my darlings," she whispered. "I'm no queen. You are the real kings and queens. You have hearts full of gold." But the children only laughed and shouted, "No, Auntie Alma, you are our queen." She smiled through her tears, her heart full of peace. At that moment, she realized something. She didn't need crowns or followers. She didn't need to be called beautiful. Her purpose had already given her more than any fame could ever offer. Later that night, as she walked home with Kojo by her side, the city lights twinkled around them. "Kojo," she said softly, "I used to think being seen was the same as being valued. But now I know, real value is in how many lives you touch." Kojo nodded. "And you've touched more lives than you'll ever know." Alma smiled, her eyes reflecting the glow of the street lamps. "Then that's enough for me." From that day, people no longer called her just Queen Alma. They called her the Queen with a purpose. And though she never asked for the title, she carried it with quiet grace, not on her head like a crown, but in her heart, where true beauty lived forever.